Hello everyone. Today we discuss about the tracts of the spinal cord. Now first of all, what are tracts? Tracts are actually the collection of nerve fibers within the central nervous system, and they have the same origin, course and termination. They are also known as the fasciculi or the laministi. Now the tracts are actually have, as you can see, they have such a long name. Corticospinal, pterygospinal, and etc. That's such a long name because in the name of them we have basically two terms. That is, the one term actually denotes the origin of the particular tract, and the second term denotes the termination of that particular tract. For example, as you can see over here, the corticospinal actually originates from the cerebral cortex and it actually terminates at the spinal cord. That's why its name is corticospinal tract. Same with all the tracts. Now the classification of tract, we have basically three types of tract, that is the descending tract, ascending tract and the intersegmental tract. Now first of all, the descending tract, we have first of all lateral corticospinal tract, then the anterior corticospinal tract, medial reticulospinal tract, lateral reticulospinal tract, rubrospinal tract, vestibulospinal and the tectospinal tract. Now first of the corticospinal tract, or the also known as the pyramidal tract. Now in this we have, in the pyramidal tract we have around 1 million fibers in the pyramidal tract, and as you can see over here, this is the corticospinal tract. And after decussating at the opposite side and forming the decussating tract, it divides into two, that is the lateral and the anterior corticospinal tract. Remember, it decussates in the lower part and divides into two, that is the lateral and the anterior corticospinal tract. We'll discuss about this in detail later. Now first of all, the origin of the corticospinal tract, that is, of course, as the name says, cortico, so it will arise from the cerebral cortex. So most of the fibers of the corticospinal tract arises from the pyramidal cell of the beds of the motor area of the cerebral cortex, and some fiber also arises from other part of the cortex as well. Now very important, the course. Now the fiber actually passes through the corona radiata, then it traverses the internal capsule, and then it goes down and crosses the crus cerebri of the cerebral peduncles, then the ventral part of the pons, and the pyramid of the medulla oblongata. These are the pyramids of the medulla oblongata. So it crosses that, and after crossing this, it actually in the lower part of the medulla. This is the lower part of the medulla. So over here, about 75% cross the opposite side of the pyramidal decussate. Over here, as you can see, this is a pyramidal decussate. So of course, what is decussate? Decussation means forming a cross shape. So of course, from here the corticospinal tract is coming. So from the opposite side also it will the corticospinal tract will come, and they will form decussate. That means they will cross each other and they will come in the opposite side of each other. So this will come in the opposite side. It means the pyramidal decussation over here it will occur, and from here it will go down. And over here, as you can see, at the pyramidal decussation of the medulla, it goes down from over here and descend in the lateral white column of the spinal cord. This is the white column of the spinal cord, and that is the lateral part. And over here, the lateral white column of the spinal cord, that consists of this corticospinal tract. So over here, this corticospinal tract is known as the lateral or the posterior corticospinal tract because it is present in the lateral white column of the spinal cord. Now similarly over here, as you can see, some part of the corticospinal tract don't crosses. It will go straight downwards and it forms the anterior or the ventral corticospinal tract, the uncrossed fibers. Over here, as you can see, it crosses and goes in the pyramidal decussation. It actually goes to the opposite side. So that is known as the lateral, and the uncrossed one is the anterior. And remember, the lateral corticospinal part also contains some fibers arising from the ipsilateral cerebral cortex. Now the lateral one actually lies in the lateral white column, and the anterior one actually lies in the anterior white column. Now the termination of the corticospinal tract. Now over here, as you can see, these are the lateral corticospinal, which actually crosses and goes to the opposite decussating fibers from the decussating fibers, and the uncrossed one is the anterior corticospinal tract. Now at the termination, at the lower part, most of the fiber of both terminates by synapsing with the interneurons. These are the interneurons, as over here, as you can see, these are the interneurons. So these both will synapse with the interneurons, which in turn project to the motor neurons alpha and gamma of the anterior horn. So in short, remember, they terminates at the anterior horn. okay, by the means of interneurons and also by the means of motor neurons. Okay, and only 2% fibers directly synapse with the motor neuron. But the main termination is that the anterior horn only, anterior horn of the spinal cord. So that's why its name is corticospinal tract. Now the function of this corticospinal tract is that because of the decussation, okay, it mainly decussate over here, as you can see, decussates. So it will mainly, the function of this is that it will, we all know that the cerebral cortex actually functions or controls the muscles of the body, right? Actually controls the muscle, the motor function of the body. So as because these fibers are going in the opposite direction, so this fiber will actually control the opposite muscles of the body, opposite motor muscle or the motor tracts of the body. So this will, if there will be lesion in this tract, in the, means over here in this tract, so it will cause paralysis in the opposite side. So in the clinical relation, we can say that the lesion of the pyramidal tract above the level of the decussation, above this over here, as you can see, in the upper motor neuron, it results in the loss of the voluntary movement in the opposite half of the body, in the opposite half, because it goes in the decussation pathway, because it crosses the, because it goes in the opposite side. So that's why it will paralyze the opposite pathway. But remember, the muscle are not actually paralyzed over here, only their control by the upper motor neurons are inhibited because of the lesion in the upper motor neurons. So because of the lesion in the upper motor neuron, so the hyperactivity of the LMN or the low motor neuron actually occurs, and the tone of the muscle is increased, leading to spastic paralysis. Now next is the rubrospinal tract. Over here, this is the rubrospinal tract. Now fibers of this tract actually arises from the red nucleus. This is the red nucleus. The red nucleus or the nucleus rubber located in the brainstem, and that too particularly in the midbrain. We all know brainstem is consist of the midbrain, pons and medulla. So it occurs from the brainstem, that too from the midbrain, and that too from the red nucleus or the nucleus rubber. And immediately caudal to the red nucleus, immediately just below to the nucleus, they decussate with the opposite side and descend as compact bundle in the lateral white column of the spinal cord. Lateral white column of the spinal cord. So it will again decussate. As you can see, it will decussate with the opposite. And over here, this one will also decussate over here. And at the lower part, it will go in the lateral white column of the spinal cord. And then it will go downward, okay, and lies in the, and it will descend in the lateral white column of the spinal cord, ventral to the corticospinal tract. The fibers of this tract end just like those of the corticospinal tract. That means from the anterior horn or the anterior horn cells of the spinal cord. If you remember, from the interneuron and that too from the motor neuron of the brainstem, it actually ends into the anterior horn of the spinal cord, right? So this will also terminate in the anterior horn of the spinal cord. Now this tract forms the part of the extrapyramidal system, and the very important, the function of the rubrospinal tract facilitates the activity of the flexure muscle of the body, and inhibits the activity of the extension and the anti-gravity muscle of the body. Now next is the reticulospinal tract. Now we have basically, as you can see over here, two reticulospinal tracts. There is a lateral and the medial reticulospinal tract. Now as the name says lateral, so it is mainly present or lies in the lateral white column of the spinal cord, and the medial reticulospinal tract actually lies in the anterior white column of the spinal cord. Now this lateral reticulospinal tract is also known as the medullary reticulospinal tract, and the medial is known as the pontine reticulospinal tract. Okay, now this lateral actually arises from the cells of the reticular formation in the brainstem, that is from the midbrain, pons and medulla. It actually arises, as the name says, reticulospinal, so it will arise from the reticular formation. So just remember the name, so you will be easily able to remember the origin and the termination of the particular tract. So it actually originates from the reticular formation of the brainstem, that is a midbrain, pons and medulla, and relay in the anterior horn of the spinal cord. Anterior horn. Till now, each and every this tract, till now, whatever we studied till now, all the tracts were terminating and relaying in the anterior horn only. That means corticospinal, or we can say the rubrospinal, reticulospinal. These all terminates and relay in the anterior horn of the spinal cord only. Now over here, the medial one lies in the anterior white column of the spinal cord, and as the name says, reticulospinal, so of course it will also arise from the reticular formation of the medulla, especially from the medulla only, not from the brainstem, just like the lateral. So it actually arises from the cells of the reticular formation in the medulla and relay in the anterior horn cells of the spinal cord. Now the function of the lateral reticulospinal tract is that it actually influences the motor neuron to supply the skeletal muscles, and over here the medial actually causes the inhibitory influence to the motor neurons supplying the skeletal muscles. Now remember one more thing, the hypothalamus-spinal tract. Now what is the hypothalamus-spinal tract? Reticulospinal tract, that means the lateral and the medial one, actually provides a pathway by which the hypothalamus can control the sympathetic and the parasympathetic outflow. Okay, and what is the sympathetic outflow? That is the thoracolumbar outflow, and the parasympathetic is the sacral outflow. So means these two actually provides a pathway by which the hypothalamus can actually perform or actually can control the thoracolumbar sympathetic and the sacral parasympathetic outflows. Now hypothalamus-spinal tract. The hypothalamus-spinal tract is not mainly included in the descending tract, but just for information, the hypothalamus-spinal tract actually projects from the hypothalamus and descends in the lateral white column on the medial side of the lateral corticospinal tract. This is the lateral corticospinal tract, and in the medial of this it will be descending, okay, and terminates by synapsing with the lateral horns of, remember, T1 to L2. That means T1 to L2, if you remember, it is responsible for the sympathetic outflow, okay, for the sacral outflow, so T1 to L2. And also the lateral horns of the S2 to S4 spinal segment responsible for the parasympathetic outflow. So just remember, the hypothalamus-spinal tract projects from the hypothalamus, descends from the medial to the lateral corticospinal tract, and actually terminates by synapsing with the, remember, lateral horns. Lateral horns. What is the lateral horns? Over here, as you can see, it is not visible perfectly over here, but we have one lateral horn over here, some projecting like this. So from the lateral horn cells, it actually synapses with the lateral horn cells of the T1 to L2, that means the thoracolumbar or the sympathetic outflow segments, and the lateral horns of the S2 to S4 spinal segment responsive for parasympathetic outflow. Now next is the vestibulospinal tract of the descending tract. Over here, as you can see, this is the vestibulospinal tract, and it is basically present in the anterior white column. This is the anterior part, this is the posterior part. So from the anterior white column of the spinal cord, and as the name says, vestibulospinal, so it basically originates from the vestibular nucleus and terminates in the anterior horn cells of the spinal cord. Okay, and basically responsible for the unconscious maintenance of the posture and the balance. Now the tectospinal, over here is the tectospinal tract of the descending tract of the spinal cord, and it basically presents in the anterior white column, and it originates from the superior coccygeus of the opposite side and ends in the cranial nerve nuclei in the medulla and the anterior horns of the upper spinal segment. And it controls the movement of the head, neck and arms in the response to visual stimuli. Now next type is the ascending tract. These all are the ascending tracts. Now over here, the ascending tract, if you know, conduct the impulses from the peripheral to the brain through the spinal cord. Okay, and because the ascending tract are actually the sensory tracts, but the descending was the motor, and the ascending is the sensory tract of the spinal cord. Now the over here, as you can see, these are the ascending tracts, and over here especially the lateral. This is the lateral spinothalamic tract and the anterior spinothalamic tract. These both are mainly responsible for the pain and temperature sensation and the crude touch, while for the fine touch and the conscious proprioceptive sensations, over here the fasciculus gracilis and the fasciculus cuneatus. Okay, these both are responsible for the fine touch or very light touch and conscious proprioceptive sensations, while the remaining two, that is the posterior and the anterior spinocerebral tract, are responsible for the unconscious proprioception and the muscular coordinations. Now first of all, the lateral spinothalamic tract. First of all, you may know that in the dorsal root ganglion, this is the posterior root or the dorsal root of the spinal cord, and in that we have particularly dorsal root ganglion, and in that dorsal ganglion we are having some cells, and that too particularly the neurons in that. Okay, because it is having the cell bodies of the neurons. So this lateral spinothalamic tract and most of the ascending tract actually arises as the primary or the first order sensory neurons from the dorsal root ganglion of the nerve of the spinal nerves, right? Now the central process of these nerve enters the spinal cord through, remember, lateral division of the dorsal root. This is the first over here, as you can see, this is the dorsal ganglion. Okay, and from the dorsal ganglion it arises from over here from the primary order or the first order sensory neuron. Okay, from the first order sensory neuron it actually arises and comes into the spinal cord or enters the spinal cord through the lateral division of the dorsal root of spinal cord. This is the dorsal root. So lateral division of the dorsal of spinal cord. Remember, in the lateral spinothalamic tract, it actually enters from the lateral division of the dorsal root. While if you will go in the anterior spinothalamic tract, the main difference in these both two is only of the entering only. Okay, rest all things are almost same. So this is the anterior one, right? So in the anterior spinothalamic tract, all things are same. Just the entering of this tract actually arises from the medial division of the this dorsal root of spinal cord, right? So over here it actually enters from the lateral division. The lateral one actually enters from the lateral division of the spinal cord, lateral division of the dorsal spinal cord. Now in the cord, remember, in the cord it will ascend 1 to 2 segment in the dorsolateral tract of lesion. This is the dorsolateral tract of lesion in the dorsal root of spinal cord. Okay, so it will ascend 1 to 2 segments from this particular dorsal tract of lesion. Okay, and after passing through this, it will actually come inside the posterior horn, and it will relay its signal to the substantia gelatinosa. Over here, it will synapse with the substantia gelatinosa cells. Okay, and the axon of the second order sensory neuron of the substantia gelatinosa cross the opposite side. It will come in the opposite side. It will cross the opposite side of the anterior wide commissure. This is the anterior wide commissure, right? This is the posterior wide commissure, and this is the anterior wide commissure. So it will cross the anterior wide commissure of the spinal cord and ascend up as lateral spinothalamic tract. It will come over here and it will ascend at the lateral spinothalamic tract in the opposite lateral wide column, just lateral to the anterior horn. So just remember, after crossing the first order sensory neurons, after coming out as first order sensory neurons, it will enter into the spinal cord from the posterior horn only, and in the posterior horn, remember, it will pass to 1 to 2 segments from this dorsolateral tract of leisure, 1 to 2 segments, and then it will relay into the posterior horn by synapsing with the cells of the substantia gelatinosa. Now the second order cells of the substantia gelatinosa will actually cross or go in the opposite direction or the opposite side by the anterior commissure, and then it will go upward, continues upward as the lateral spinothalamic tract. Now this all process is same in the anterior spinothalamic tract, except that it actually enters into the posterior horn by the means of the medial part or the medial division of the posterior horn, while this lateral one would actually come from the lateral side or the lateral division of the posterior horn. Now the termination of both of the spinothalamic tract. Now as the name says, spinothalamic tract, so it will end or terminate in the thalamus. So basically in the thalamus, and that too in the ventral posterolateral nucleus or the VP of the thalamus, it terminates. Now particularly this lateral spinothalamic tract is mainly responsible for the pain and temperature, while the anterior one is mainly responsible for the crude touch and pressure. Now next is the fasciculus gracilis and the fasciculus cuneatus. Now this is the fasciculus cuneatus and this is the fasciculus gracilis medial to the cuneatus. Now they carry sensation of the conscious proprioception, 2-point tactile discrimination and vibration. Now just like the anterior spinothalamic tract, here also the cell body of the first order sensory neuron lie in the dorsal ganglia of the spinal nerves, and the central processes of this cell enter the cortex, the medial division of the root of the spinal nerves, and continue in the posterior wide column as this, just like the anterior one. In the anterior one also the same thing was occurring, that from this first order neuron it was entering into a spinal cord by the medial division of the posterior horn, and it was continuing up as anterior spinothalamic tract. Now but over here just the different thing is that it will continue up as fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus. Now the fibers from the coccygeal, sacral, lumbar and the lower thoracic segment. Remember, coccygeal, sacral, lumbar and the lower thoracic segments ascend up in the fasciculus gracilis, and the fibers from the remaining two, that means the upper thoracic and the cervical segment, run in the fasciculus cuneatus. Now cervical, thoracic, lumbar and sacral fiber are arranged in that order from the lateral to the medial in the tracts. Now the fibers of this fasciculus gracilis and the fasciculus cuneatus both terminates in the nucleus gracilis and the nucleus cuneatus respectively. Now as you can see over here, these both the axons of the secondary order sensory neuron from the nucleus gracilis and the nucleus cuneatus curves ventromedially around the central gray matter. As you can see, this is central gray matter, so they will curve ventromedially. The second order neuron of these both will curve ventromedially medially from the gray matter or gray part of the spinal cord as internal arcuate fibers to undergo decussation. Now the fiber, after crossing the midline, turns upward as a flat track. Now this track is known as the medial lemniscus. Medial lemniscus acts on the second order neurons. Now this medial lemniscus actually courses upward to terminate in the ventral posterolateral nucleus of the thalamus, just like the spinothalamo tract. They will end in the thalamus. Now the third order sensory neuron from the thalamus projects into the cerebral cortex in the cerebral hemisphere. As you can see, the axon of third order neuron, they will actually project into the cerebral cortex of the cerebral hemisphere. And because of this whole pathway, this pathway carrying the conscious proprioceptive sensation is known as the dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway. Now the clinical importance of this is that the involvement of the posterior white column and the posterior nerve root is in syphilitic degeneration disease called the tabes dorsalis leads to loss of sense of position. The patient is not able to tell the position or movement of his lower limb unless he sees them. Therefore, he is asked to stand up with his feet together and eyes closed. He staggers and falls because he cannot maintain his correct position due to lack of the proprioceptive information, and this sign is known as the Romberg sign. Now next is the spinocerebral tract. These are the two spinocerebral tracts, the anterior and the posterior one, and they are mainly located in the lateral white column of the spinal cord, and they mainly carry unconscious proprioceptive sensation from the cord to the cerebellum and play an important role in the muscular coordination. Now next is the spinotactal tract. These are the spinotactal tract, and they are located in the lateral white column and originates from the posterior horn cells of the spinal cord of opposite side and terminates in the superior colliculus of the tectum of midbrain, and they mainly carry the visuomotor reflexes and also the head and eye movements towards the sources of the stimulation. Now last is the intersegmental tract over here. As you can see, these are the intersegmental tract. Now mainly the short ascending and the descending tract, which originate and end within the spinal cord only, exist in the lateral, anterior and the posterior white columns, means in the all the sides, means in the anterior, posterior and the lateral white column of the spinal cord, and the function of this tract is to mainly interconnect the neurons of the different segmental levels. These tracts are particularly important in the intersegmental spinal reflexes. So this was all about the tracts of the spinal cord and ascending, the descending and the intersegmental. So hope you did well. Thank you so much.